today on the Brain Regen Podcast.
And if you don't have any parent omega-6, your skin will be horrific. We have women going nuts with how soft their skin is, how great the fingernail is, because that's all parent omega-6 too. They get thick, they don't break anymore. The health and beauty aspects, biggest secret in the world.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Dr. Greg Eckel here. What the health? Today's topic is cellular anti-inflammation, longevity, and optimum health. The prime number one key to remaining disease-free. You will learn that in today's show. Professor Brian Peskin is a world-leading scientist specializing in parent EFAs, termed PEOs, which we will learn about here in a moment, while advancing the scientific understanding of the role of essential fatty acids in the body's metabolic pathways. He has also advanced the discoveries of Nobel Prize winner Otto Warburg, MD, PhD, to increase cellular oxygenation. Professor Peskin, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Delighted to be here. Yeah, like you said, I specialize in physiologic EFAs, cellular anti-inflammation and disease prevention, but the applications to accelerating weight loss and minimizing exercise time are very profound. So I typically consult exclusively with healthcare professionals and physicians, providing state-of-the-art science they likely haven't seen before. But today I'll give a general audience understandable based science, and they'll get 25 years of my discoveries in an hour. So fish oil was a wonderful first cut in EFA science, but over the past 30 years, the scientific understanding has significantly advanced, and I'll clear up the rampant confusion on the internet about seed oils. So everybody's saying seed oils are toxic, right?
Yeah.
Statement is partly true. Chemically processed, adulterated seed oils are toxic. To the contrary, unprocessed organic seed oils are absolutely essential to great health, because regardless of what you've been told, we have 100 trillion cells that require them. They are the brick and mortar of each cell, and they have to be organic. Organic's two things. There's no pesticides, chemicals in the growing, and the extraction of the oil is chemically free. So if you don't distinguish between processed and organic, you completely miss the mark. So uniquely, seed oils have the potential to be either essential or toxic. Organic oils are essential, and that's precisely why they're called EFAs, for essential. And my favorite quote is, we're suffering from a wealth of information, but a poverty of understanding what the information means. We don't need more studies. We need people that connect the dots and give you proper conclusion, and that's very rare today. For example, inflammation is now known as the root cause, and I'm big on root cause physiology, of the majority of diseases: cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, both type 1, type 2, COPD, even Alzheimer's. These are all inflammatory-based diseases occurring in younger and younger patients. I don't need to tell you that. I'm sure you see them. And all of these diseases are known to impair what's called the delta-6 desaturase, D6D, metabolic pathway in the medical journals. Why do you care about it? Because they decrease everything after the parent omega-6 comes in. I'll talk about that in a minute. So DHA will be down, DGLA will be down. Everything will be down if this pathway is impaired. And the biggest thing will be down is PGE1, anti-inflammatory prostaglandin series 1. It is by far the most powerful anti-inflammatory, PGE2, PGE3 are childish compared to this, and it's all on the omega-6 side. And PGE1 is the most important because it's before, technically, arachidonic acid. Everybody else except us, we're the world leaders in anti-inflammatory lipid science, looks after the D6D pathway starts, and they go with arachidonic acid, and they all completely miss PGE1. It's called number one because it's the most important, and the most of it has the potential to be made. So for the past decade, I've concentrated exclusively on cellular anti-inflammation and have developed the most powerful anti-inflammatory in the world. It's called Easy Trek. It is made to help nutritionally compensate for an impairment in the D6D pathway, which is known in 9 diseases. All the inflammatory diseases have an impairment. I cannot bring the pathway back, but thank God nature has allowed us to compensate. So I want to thank Dr. Rob at MD Anderson for having me change how I pronounce it. It used to be called S-Track. He goes, Brian, it's so easy. The patient just takes it once a day and they're done. Start calling it easy. And got 2 more things, and then you can certainly ask me questions. PEO stand for parent essential oils. There's parent omega-6, parent omega-3. Neither one can be made by the body. They have to come from food, and seed oils is the best way to get them, contrary to anything you've seen. But here's an amazing American Heart Association quote, and I'll read it because I don't like getting these things wrong, and it's been forgotten. Quote, unprocessed omega-6 has powerful anti-inflammatory properties that counteract any pro-inflammatory properties. It's incorrect to view the omega-6 fatty acids seed oils as pro-inflammatory. Quote, that reflects a rather naive understanding of the biochemistry. These people have had to see my work because sometimes I'm quite derogatory, because I need to be if I let the health profession keep on propagating this misinformation. People are dying. Where does this come from? American Heart Association, Heartwire 2009, Journal, American Heart Association. American Heart Association Advisory Board, Harris W.S. et al., circulation, omega-6 fatty acids, and the risk for cardiovascular disease. And one last thing, and then I'll be happy to answer some questions, because I'm sure you have. I calculated just 1% adulterated oils in a mere teaspoon will overwhelm every one of the 100 trillion cells in your body by 30,000 to 1. So I know martial arts. You put 30,000 people in front of me, I don't care if you don't know anything, they'll just bowl me over and I'm dead. Thank God the 30,000 to 1 doesn't go into the cell, because Dr. Lanz in 1990 showed with radioisotope testing, percentage of the lipids that are bad compared with the percentage of lipids that are good, unprocessed organic, are what go into the cell. So if I'm eating 80% good oils and 20% bad, every one of the 100 trillion cells in my body is 80% good. And Otto Warburg showed 35% decrease in cellular oxygenation. So I start getting the bad oils in there. The cellular oxygenation goes down because the lipid membrane can disassociate oxygen from the cell membrane. Nobody talks about this except Campbell in 1976, looking at cystic fibrosis disease. The actual cell membrane is the same partial pressure as hemoglobin. It disassociates the oxygen. So the misinformation is rampant, and it's the #1 nutritional deficiency in the world, and especially America, is not getting the organic oil. So I'm sure you have a few questions. Then I'll give you 3 facts from the medical textbooks that will have your head spinning and prove everything I just said. But I'm happy to answer a couple of questions first.
I love it, Professor Peskin. So yeah, the contrarian indeed. We're hearing all of this information about the bad seed oils, etc. Now I'm wondering,
Most of them are bad, Doc. So in fairness to them, but they
yeah.
need to go back to English school and have an English course. They all miss an adjective. It's called processed, adulterated, toxic oils.
So
And
how do
that's
you tell the
hydrogenated
difference?
oils into esterified fats. If it's processed, it's ruined, and it's to get long shelf life. We're
Which is
not
the
making,
majority of these oils that we're
yes,
consuming in salad dressings,
yes.
other components, right? So how do you get organic seed oil that's not
Excellent
processed?
question. You either take it from a supplement like Easy Trek, or you go to the health food store and get organic avocado oil, for example. Great to fry in. Has a 440-degree smoke point, so it can take all kinds of heat. Coconut oil is my favorite. Fully saturated fat, wonderful to fry in, organic. But Brian, the saturated fat's going to clog my artery and give me a heart attack. Wrong. There is no saturated fat in a clogged artery. I lived in the cardiovascular space, and we're doing a lot of work in that even today. It's 85 to 87% adulterated parent omega-6 is in the clogged artery. And furthermore, it's not going bad in the body like these people tell you. It's
And do you
called
have a
exogenous,
way?
meaning from the food you eat. And
Yeah.
this is from Dr. Spiteler, one of Germany's top biochemists and a shareholder. And I talked to him. It's from the food. Something called bis-allylic bonds. You need a double bond to a single bond. They're the most highly reactive bonds in nature. And if there's not at least three, there's nothing to worry about with it going bad. It's very, very little that happens. And omega-6 only has two double bonds. So anybody telling you this misinformation has no understanding of physiology and biochemistry. It's tragic. They're all parroting. There's no independent analysis. We analyze everything to make sure it's consistent with the medical textbooks, textbook medical physiology, molecular biology of the cell, all the medical textbooks you went when you were in medical school.
Yeah,
And
there's a bit of absolutism that occurs, right? Of all seed oils are bad. But I think when you look at the market of what people can consume, it's actually not a bad policy for the general consumer to stay off of the processed seed oils. Like you're saying that.
you're
saying
100% right.
processed seed
100%
oils
right,
are
but
toxic to the body. So is there a way that you have of measuring the damage in the body or the level? I mean, we can measure omega-3, 6, 9 oils in the
You
blood.
can measure those, but don't listen to what their reference ranges are. It's what I tell people. You can
Yeah.
measure them, but don't pay any attention up because they're all made up like cholesterol numbers were made up.
Sure.
It used to be 250, then 220, then 200. Now, if you've had a heart attack, they want it less than 70. Here's a cool thing with cholesterol. There's no sensor in the bloodstream to regulate it. There is for insulin, calcium, sodium, potassium. Why is there not one for cholesterol? Because the number doesn't matter. Why? Because you have the cholesterol molecule and the parent essential oils and all the derivatives, which is further down, like arachidonic acid, EPA, DHA, they're all further down the line because it starts up here with the parents and goes to the offspring. It's transporting them. So, for example, a statin was a great first cut. If I decrease LDL-C, I decrease the bad cholesterol. But at the same time, you're it's not the bad cholesterol. There is no bad cholesterol.
Right.
You're decreasing the parent oils that are adulterated, but you're also decreasing the good oils. So that's not the answer. The answer is to just consume the good oils and have less of the bad ones. So the whole medical profession, this is why statins are ineffective. It's like 98% of people taking a statin, it doesn't help. It's called an NNT of 98. You want an NNT closer to 1, like the NNT for insulin is 1. If I shoot you with insulin, your blood sugar is going to go down. But with a statin,
and that means number needed to treat. So like for
you
how
got it. You're one of the rare ones that know it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And
taking,
you can measure this. You can measure C-reactive protein, for example.
yeah.
You can measure DGLA to AA to get the conversion to see if you have a delta 6 impairment. But if you have cardiovascular disease, cancer, type 1 or type 2 insulin, and even if you're taking insulin, shockingly, it doesn't fix the pathway. So once the pathway is ruined, it's not it doesn't work at all or you'd be dead. If you had no anti-inflammatory, we'd all be dead. That's the cytokine overload. You've heard about that with the flu and with the COVID
Sure,
and
the
everything else.
cytokine storm.
Cytokine storm, correct. PGE1 quells that storm. So here's a big one. 100 trillion cells. Every one of the cells has a bilipid membrane. This is the world I live in. That membrane is half protein, half lipid, oil, no carbohydrate in there. Out of the lipid section, quarter to a third are parents. They are the brick and mortar of the cell, and there's 100 trillion of them. Now, the mistake that was made, they thought all the parents would go to derivatives 30 years ago because they didn't have what's called high resolution chromatography. It is not 35 or 40%. It's 0.1%. It's 1,000 go to the derivatives. Very, very small amount. So the initial thought 30 years ago in the medical profession was, let's be gentle on the body. Let's make it easy and give them all the derivatives. Body doesn't have to do it. So what's happening now is we are getting a toxic overload of fish oil. So that's the first one. Every cell in the body, 100 trillion, parents, brick and mortar. And by the way, if you look at all the tissues and organs in the body, the ratio of parent omega-6, parent omega-3 is 12 to 1. It's 4 to 1 in the organs, liver, heart, kidneys. Muscles, 6.5 to 1. Fat, 20 to 1. Do a little algebra, it's overall 12 to 1. So anybody telling you, oh, we're all overdosed on omega-6, nature wants a pile of omega-6. We're overdosed on the processed, toxic, adulterated omega-6. Next big thing nobody's ever seen, published in the journal. I saw it, why everybody else doesn't. I'm an engineer by training. I come from MIT, so I'm very, very good at systems analysis. First question I have is, you're giving a dosage of fish oil, 1,000 milligram, it's 600 milligrams of DHA, EPA, 60% quote active ingredients. How much is the brain using every day?
Of the oils?
Ever see that written in a medical journal article you've seen?
No.
How much DHA is the brain using every day? Yes or no? I'll give you the answer. You don't even need the answer. It's no. I've never found anybody, unless they've read my work, that has seen the journal articles. It's 2 to 6 milligrams.
Of DHA.
Milligrams, which means I take 1,000 milligram capsule of fish oil every day. And a lot of healthcare professionals are telling you to take 4,000 milligrams a day. You're getting 1 to 300 times, not percent, 100 to 300 times supraphysiologic overdose of what the brain uses. Now, to put that in perspective, take 100 aspirin because you got a headache, call me in the morning. Don't, I'm being facetious. You will be dead. This is what the health community is overwhelmingly telling their patients to do, and they are killing them. Where does this come from? Molecular biology of the cell, Harper's Illustrated Biochemistry, Test Book of Medical Physiology. So my advice to anybody listening is, if the healthcare provider you're getting information from isn't providing medical textbook references, run like the dickens. 2 to 6 milligrams a day. Another major one. Everybody can make all the DHA they need from the parents. Now, if you're not getting the parents, you won't get the DHA. But virtually everybody makes that 2 to 6 milligrams for the brain per day. And in the body, 2,600 to 1 is parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. So the parents are the key. They stay as parents. Where the heck does this come from? American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, Journal of Lipid Research, polyunsaturated fatty acid newsletter. Big one. Never seen this picked up by anybody either. Key finding 2017. It's only 7 years ago. Majority of cells hypersensitive to changes of their membrane lipids, quote, induced by the diet. This is the dietary adulteration of the oils. Inflammation is now known as key, and the medical journal article states the finding is a game changer. What causes the inflammation? Processed oils. All in the omega-6 side. The omega-3 oils never used. Anybody ever tell you to fry in flax oil? No. Anybody ever tell you to bake in flax oil? No. They know the omega-3 series cooking oils are too reactive and go bad. Here's one little tidbit, and then I'm happy to answer some more questions. The oils are antifreeze for a fish. I take a cold water fish living in 30-degree water. If I threw you in it, you'd freeze, hypothermia, you'd die, turn into a block of ice, right? We're 60, 70% water. Well, nature has two choices, so the fish doesn't turn into a block of floating ice and die. I can give it alcohol. Drunk fish, that's not going to fly. Can't have a drunk fish. Or long chain fats, because if I throw vodka in the freezer, it doesn't freeze. If I put the oils in the freezer, it doesn't freeze either. So that's nature's way. Why do I say it's antifreeze? Because Dr. Rowan, my co-author on PEO Solution, said, Brian, got a great journal article. He did studies. Studies are great to confirm the science. How much DHA do you think is in a warm water fish? I said, it's going to be less. He goes, it's a hell of a lot less. 14 times less DHA in the warm water fish than the cold water fish. What are we doing? We're not at 70 degrees, man. We're at 98.6 in case somebody hasn't checked. DHA spontaneously goes bad at room temperature. This is why you walk by the fish section of the supermarket and you have that smell spontaneously oxidizing. We're at 98.6. So what's happening is people taking this pharmacologic overdose of fish oil, all the antioxidants are running from elsewhere in the body, particularly in the brain, to go, what did this jackass just do? I got to stop this coil of inflammation in the bloodstream. Now my brain's not protected. Gee, do we have an epidemic of dementia, frontal lobe, lack of blood flow, and Alzheimer's? Yeah, we do, directly correlated with the increase in the fish oil consumption. So it's horrible. Luckily, we can solve it. Minimize processed food. You don't have to bring it to zero. You're not going to bring it to zero. I go to fast food places once or twice a week, but I also get the unadulterated organic oils. And there's different brands. I could talk at the end. There's one brand that's a supplement just to maintain EFA health. But Easy Trek is a medical food. You need to be under care of a physician. And it is the biggest anti-inflammatory if anybody has any diseases. And PGE, again, 2 and 3 are nothing as far as their effectiveness to anti-inflammation compared with PGE 1. And on the omega-3 side, completely worthless. The omega-3 series is very, very impotent. It has no power at all. It's all in the omega-6. And this is why all the omega-6 foods are so prevalent. One of the few omega-3 foods would be lettuce, grass. Even in grass that the cow is eating all day long, the body doesn't want it. It burns most of it up. So instead of the 10-to-1 omega-3 to omega-6 in the grass-fed beef is 2-to-1 in favor of the omega-6. So even in the cow, it's getting rid of it. Our skin, 100% parent omega-6. The intima, the inner lining of the artery, all parent omega-6. That's where the problem is. And Dr. Sobodin, the intima, every medical textbook, it's one layer. No, it's not. It's 15. He read my work and said, Brian, you're not going to believe this. I have electron microscopy of 15 layers in the intima. I said, my God, that means we have 15 times more potential to have plaque in the artery and calcified arterial plaque which is the worst. I'm doing a lot of work with that because we know Easy Trek also reverses that with inflammation. And now CAC is known as the #1 predictor of heart disease, way above cholesterol. But because there's no drug to do anything, the medical profession doesn't do much with it. You can get a CT scan, non-contrast CT, but what do? Statin makes it worse. So we're in a very, very tough position. We're killing ourselves with the oils. And if you don't have any parent omega-6, your skin will look like an Eskimo. Your skin will be horrific. There's people on the internet saying no seed oils. Take a look at their skin. They're horrific. That's the biggest thing you know. We have women going nuts with how soft their skin is, how great the fingernail is, because that's all parent omega-6 too. So there's no hill valley wrinkles on the fingernail. They get thick. They don't break anymore. The health and beauty aspects, biggest secret in the world, are these oils. But you need balance with parent omega-6, parent omega-3, the right amounts of GLA, because that allows you to help compensate for the delta-6 impairment. So I've given you enough to take a drink from a fire hose. That was my joke when we went to MIT. Everybody say it's trying to get
that was good. Yeah.
From a fire hose. So there's a lot of info there, but
there's a lot to unpack there. And I think the component that comes up, one, measuring the impairment of delta-6 desaturase.
Yes.
How do you do that?
You can get it on your blood spot test. So you measure DGLA to AA, and that will give you a ratio. It's probably not even listed on the recommended specs because they don't, even the labs don't understand what you should be looking at. They'll just give you want so much omega-6 to omega-3, and then they link them together. You want to know how much parent omega-6 to parent omega-3, how much GLA to EPA plus DHE plus DHA. They don't even know the proper ratios you should be looking at. I tell people don't even waste their time getting the tests anymore, quite honestly, because I used to do them. And it's like, what they're telling you is wrong. So what do you need the test for? I'm telling you right now.
What's the ideal ratio, though? We are thinking being
for a supplement, I like 2 or 3 to 1, parent omega-6, parent omega-3. You need to take a supplement, and over 20 years of this, it's all I do. Thousands of patients around the world, thousands of physicians. You want to see physicians' comments on my work, look at brianpeskin.com. There's 5 world-class physicians there that have been around me for years. You can see what they think. Go down to the bottom, there's 100 patient testimonials, and there's 35 more healthcare professionals talking about what they do. There's books I've written. Every chapter starts with a healthcare professional talking about it. I've even had MDs trying to prove my hidden story of cancer, had some of it wrong with this work. One had his daughter, who's a professional researcher, trying to find something wrong in a 500-page book I wrote. He ends up after a year calling me, Brian, we couldn't find anything. And it's like, why are you looking for something wrong? Because it's so opposite to what he learned.
Yeah.
He couldn't bring himself to go, I've been harming patients unknowingly. And everybody listening, thank God you can reverse course now in your treatment, and the patient can finally get your protocol turbocharged. Because once you have the terrain fixed and the inflammation quelled, all of your protocols for specific treatments will be 10 times better. So a physician has it very, very tough today because no matter how great your protocol is, the terrain doesn't work. It's like Dr. Rob, after the radiation and chemo, would go, Brian, the skin is basically sterile. It doesn't work anymore. I do a great surgery and they don't heal. So my oils helped with that. And that's why he had 100 of his patients taking the supplement form and expedited healing and just phenomenal results. But your job is so tough. My empathy goes out to you because you're trying to fix people that are ruining their terrain. It's like they're breathing in a toxic gas every day and you're giving them oxygen. You're giving them ozone. You're doing everything you can.
So
let's talk about
what you found in correcting this with the oxygen gradient and how the oxygen of the body, how these help with that.
Absolutely. It's phenomenal. Everybody knows in the medical profession, how do you help cure, reverse anything? Oxygen. So if you're doing ozone therapy, the oils help phenomenally. If you're doing hyperbaric oxygen for wound healing, phenomenally. If you're doing hyperbaric to help neuropathy, the oils help phenomenally. It's the equivalent of hyperbaric oxygen 24 hours a day. And what's disgusting to me and very sad is all the hyperbaric people aren't making use of my discovery. They're not adding it. And it's just tragic. See, the problem is once the medical profession gets something ingrained like seed oils are bad, they stay 20 years behind the times. All the research shows you're wrong. American Heart Association, 2009. 15 years later, I still don't see anybody quoting that. How you can have some internet fool saying seed oils are toxic, go back to the American Heart Association, sir, and Circulation, one of America's top cardiology journals. You're going to listen to Jim Bob over here? Are you out of your mind? Make sure you get a reference, everybody listening. If they don't give you one, run, because opinions, people ask, Brian, what's your opinion on this? Your opinion? I say, Doc, wrong question. You don't want my opinion on anything. What do you know about this? What's your opinion on how to build a 20-story high rise? Really don't care about my opinion. I better know mechanics. It's a branch of physics, or that building's going to topple over. Doesn't give a damn what I think the color should be this, and the windows should look like. You want the brick and mortar, the structure, not the icing on the cake. And everybody's looking at the icing on the cake, not the brick and mortar. And that's where I start. Physiology. And physiology isn't taught in medical school. I give lectures, A4M 2010, 14 years ago, gave a huge one. Had a professor teaching doctors, MD. He goes, Brian, after 20 minutes of your lecture, you lost me, and I'm teaching the physicians. I started laughing. I said, well, Doc, it's not fair. I'm giving you 20 years down your throat in an hour.
Right.
Nobody can do that. He goes, I teach this. I said, well, aren't your students getting undergraduate degrees or master's degrees or anything in physics? He goes, no, they don't touch physiology. It's too hard. So you have the medical profession not even looking in the key area that I live in, theoretical physiology, which means very small stuff, like theoretical physicist is very small things with quantum mechanics. I look at the cell membrane at the cell level, and nobody else is.
Have you come
very
across plasmalogens as an oil in part 25% of the
They're not essential. A lot of people have talked to me about plasmalogens. I don't buy any of it. I've seen almost nothing published on it. I know you get people that are behind it. Yap, how great it is. I haven't heard or seen anything that proves what they're saying. All I can say is, number one, they're not essential. I deal with essentials.
Okay.
Parent omega-6 is essential. Parent omega-3 is essential. Body doesn't have them, can't make them. Plasmalogens are not essential. You put those oils in there, plasmalogens are made from oleic acid, saturated fats, everything else. The body can make stuff great, like antioxidants. People are wasting their money on a ton of antioxidants. Give the minerals and coenzymes the body needs. It makes the antioxidants. I go nuts when I hear, the Orem value of this is 27,000 times of. You don't need the antioxidant in the food. It's in the food, so the food doesn't go bad. But the minute you eat it and it goes into your stomach, it's all broken down. That's the body's job. The body will make what it needs, like superoxide dismutase, SOD. That's the body's job. It doesn't need your help. But you better get the parents. It's the fuel. It's like I have a Ferrari. Doesn't run right. This mechanic, real good. Spark plugs, they're great. Spark plug wires, they're great. Throttle body, that's great. This is great. That's great. What about the guy that put regular fuel instead of super octane premium fuel in the gas tank? Oh, it's the food, it's the fuel.
Right.
Same thing with us. The body's great. So I'm a systems guy. Input's the food. You are the system. Output is your state of health, how fat you are. And the overweightness is just hellacious today. People are living on carbs. There's no RDA for carbs. Our government did this to people 20 years ago, 30 years ago. High carb diet is everything. You want complex carbs, which is garbage. I looked at the curves on that. 10 minutes difference between a complex carb hitting the bloodstream with the sugar and a simple carb. And what's even worse, Doc, is if you haven't seen the curves, there's no way you'll know. The resting blood sugar after a complex carb is worse than a simple carb like a soda. There's no way you could possibly know that. This is why sometimes you have to do experiments and see what you get. It's like, what's the blood sugar in the bodies? 5 millimoles per deciliter. I'm an engineer. What the hell does that mean? Calculated 1 teaspoon. We have 5 quarts of blood, 1 teaspoon of sugar stays in there. You're supposed to be running on fatty acids, your own body fat, but we're overdosing with sugar. So the question is, okay, there's 1 teaspoon of sugar in there. What if I put in 10? Well, got a little thing called insulin. Textbook of medical physiology. What's insulin called? Fat storage hormone. So the more carbs you eat, fatter you get. Now, need exercise 10 hours a day. Well, what if I don't want to exercise that much? Don't eat the carb. Yeah, but I need them. The nutritionist said you need them. Also said you need to eat 6 times a day. You're eating 6 times a day, people. Get a bullseye, get a dartboard, put your picture on the bullseye, diabetic time bomb. Pancreas designed to make insulin, spit it out twice a day. So what happens with the 6 small meals a day? After the second meal, you have no storage of insulin and your body can't make it. So the blood sugar levels stay high. Then with the bad fat cell membrane, insulin comes in, which is a transporter, it's a hormone, tries to get in the cell membrane. Yours is plastic. Tries to go in, bounces off. What's that called? Insulin resistance. Where the hell do you think that's coming from? So I'm very big with cause and effect. I'm not big on terms. I don't care the technical term. I tell doctors all the time, I can think. I don't have the memory you do, but I don't need it because I can think my way through something. And most of the healthcare professional is regurgitating terms, getting nowhere. And they go round and round in a circle, right? Today it's ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, low carb diet. Wait a minute. We had this in 1950. Calories don't count. Martinis and whipped cream, protein power. Got fantastic results. 30 years later, we're just a merry-go-round right back to where we were. There's no advancements made.
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about this because people are dying and getting sick tragically. 1900, cancer, 5%, heart disease, 5%. Well, Brian, you can ask me why I'm smoking and how I get around that later. Brian, they didn't know what it was. Really? I just told you a little while ago, but if you're not getting these oils, you may have forgotten it because nobody has any memory anymore. They don't have any blood flow to the frontal lobe. Their memory is impaired. Should have laser sharp attention. You should have a memory like you can't believe. And your students going to school, your children should be just like me, talking like this fast, which I could not do years ago. It's not coffee. It's not some drug. It is the oils allow everybody to be like this. Sleep 4 or 5 hours a day. I was up at 4 o'clock this morning working, and look at me. Eyes may be tearing, but that's from allergies. I live in Houston, stuff in the air because it's rained out and it brings down a pile of allergies. So there's a reason for that, but it hasn't impaired my brain. It hasn't impaired how fast I can speak. It's tragic what's happening today, but diabetes, the biggest problem in the world, biggest problem in America. There's no end in sight. Skin cancer is the same thing. Told you a little while ago. Skin is all parent omega-6. By the way, skin cancer, anybody has concerns about that? If you're eating the fish oil, stop all that. Your body makes it. It displaces the omega-6 in the skin. Fish oil goes in there. Temperature of the sun hits 90, 100 degrees. spontaneously oxidizes. That's the lipofuscin skin spots you see on people. Now you got skin cancer. Dermatologists don't have a clue. Take all the sunscreen you want. It's not that. It's the heat. And there's just no insight anymore in the medical profession. And that's why I like people that are naturopaths like you, integrative functional medicine physicians that have clinical skills, because your average doctor today tragically doesn't have them. God forbid you walk in with something complex where they haven't seen a lot of times, you're not going to get help. So I hope people will go to naturopaths much, much more, and integrative medicine physicians, or you're in trouble. Big, big trouble. But they got to add the organic oils, and it's not even stop doing anything. If you can stop eating some of the junk, and by the way, you're craving for carbs. Any diabetics? Reason I got into this whole thing of health, my wife became type 1 diabetic, doing everything right in her 30s. Goes to Whitaker in California with his complex carb diet, comes back, they send her the lab results. She's worse than when she left. I said, now I know why they don't give you the lab results there. Every patient would ask for their money back. He since closed the clinic. All of his staff left because of the complete failures. But this is the problem with the medical profession. They jump the gun, open their mouths, and I always tell this one, never forget, and you probably haven't heard this, the MD that came up with the lobotomy, break apart the lobes to the brain, Nobel Prize for a lobotomy. It's outlawed everywhere in the world, of course. They jumped the gun and said how great this was. And look what they did to people. A doctor actually got the Nobel Prize for that. So if you want to put your trust in orthodox medicine, God help you. Now, surgeons, different story. That's skill. That's wonderful. But most of the advances in medicine are from people like me, medical physicists. Better CT scans, less radiation scans. They're medical physics. They're not the pharmaceutical industry. They're not the drugs they're prescribing. It's the physics.
Hear, hear. I love it. Well, I think that's now you got to answer this one since you so primed it. We noticed your cigar. You said, how are you getting around that? So please do share, and we'll bring this one into the station.
A real good cigar. I'm not saying smoking's good for you, but with cigars, there's no additives, at least on the better ones, and you're not putting it in your lungs. But you're getting the heat, it's not good. And I smoke every day because I just like the taste and it's relaxing. Remember, I went and saw Dr. Mitchell, who's a top cardiology doc. He has the database for the Framingham Heart Study. He measures pulse wave velocity, which is the flexibility of the arteries.
Yeah.
Read a great article of his, talked to him, went up and saw him, said, Doc, I want you to measure me. Because I did it one way with something called DPA, digital plasmography. He uses pulse wave, which is a clinical thing. They have to put sensors on you. And he's talking to me. It's like, stop wasting my time. I pull out a box of these cigars. I smoke these every day. What? I said, yeah. And biologically, when you look at how flexible my artery is, how fast that pulse wave is, because the faster it is, the more hard your artery is, like a straw. So on a straw, the wave will go boom. On something flexible, it goes slower. And then all you do is plot a 20-year-old is going to be more flexible and slower than an 80-year-old that's going to have arteries like a straw, and their blood pressure is going to be going through the roof. He measures me. I came out 20 years biologically younger, fell off his chair. He goes, how can you be smoking and are 20 years younger than your typical age group is? I said, because I got a secret, biggest anti-inflammatory in the world. These oils go in and make your arteries. They go into the smooth muscle. Remember, it's 4-to-1, parent omega-6 to parent omega-3 in most organs and tissues. Well, your muscles 6.5-to-1, so you need the omega-3 in there too. Makes your artery like a balloon. And PGE1 by Dr. Weiss in 1981, great German MD, showed PGE1 decreases the plaque. So if you have an artery with a buildup in plaque, and plaque is in the wall going out, by the way, it's not going in the artery, everybody thinks, unless you have a tear in the intima, then you get a blood clot, but that's not what we're talking about. So typically what happens is this closes off because the plaque is pushing it in. So you put in a stent, it pushes it out, but it hasn't done anything to get rid of the plaque. It's like I have a piece of bread that's this thick. Hey, I don't want as much bread. And you get a guy at a restaurant squashing it with his fist. No, that didn't get rid of I had somebody do that once. I said, I don't want the carbs. I'm on a lower carb diet. He's a Spanish guy. He didn't know what the hell I was talking about. He just took it and squashed it on the grill. And I didn't say anything because he didn't know. But it's the same amount. And they never get to the cause. So I'm a big root cause guy like you are with functional medicine. We want to get to the cause of the problem. And again, for the third time, fourth time, the oils are everything. It's not the proteins, not the carbs. If you don't start getting a source of these organic, unprocessed oils, I don't care what you do. And you can exercise all you want. You cannot exercise away nutritional deficiency. I want to make this extremely clear. I have all kinds of athletes using these oils. Their performance goes through the roof. You're a weight guy, 25% more endurance. I could push more weight. My recuperation time goes down by 20% too. I don't get the lactic acid burn because the oxygenation cellular in the mitochondria is more useful. So remember I told you cardiolipin in the mitochondria, we maximize the mitochondria. For anybody listening that don't know what they are the cellular energy producers. You have 100 trillion cells. Every cell is mitochondria, typically more mitochondria than cells. So imagine 100 trillion mitochondria don't have the energy. Well, number one, what's that do to you? Chronic exhaustion. That's the number one complaint of Americans. I'm exhausted all the time. Doesn't matter how much sleep I get. Of course, you don't have the battery going in your flashlight. What do you want from it? Number two, I have an injury I can't heal. So once again, to turbocharge your protocol, Doc, you start adding these oils with the recommendations I'm giving you. 1 month, you'll be calling me, Brian. I've never seen anything change and turbocharge my protocols like you have. Nothing beats it. I mean, all I do is talk to doctors around the world. Nothing beats adding these oils. Biggest bang for the buck you'll ever see.
All right, Professor Peskin.
So I have PGE1, so I'm not having the negative effects of the cigar.
That's where I thought you were going with that answer. Thanks for bringing us into the station. It's been, definitely a fire hose talk today.
Yeah.
A lot loaded with inflammation, with anti-inflammation.
Anti-inflammation information.
Yes.
And if people want to check me out more, which I encourage you to do, they don't have to buy anything. I have all kinds of stuff on my website, brianpeskin.com. And I think the companies that sell my formulations gave you some code. So if people want to get Easy Trek, they have a disease disorder, or if they want to just make sure their EFAs are in balance, there's a company called Your Essential Supplements, but they should have given you some codes for discounts.
We'll get those in the show notes for sure,
right,
for folks that are interested.
Yeah, I don't get into that. I am science only, but there are companies that take my science and put it to darn good use. So awesome. I just live in the science world. Like these books, everyone's been read. There's no book there that just sits there. Everyone's been read.
Love it. Well, it's been a pleasure, everybody. If you got something out of today's show, give us a thumbs up. Let us know what you learned, what you're going to take out there, what you're going to share with your friends. We wouldn't be doing it without you. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.